Hello, and welcome back to the Trading Triangle. How are you doing, Kay?
I'm doing great, man. Happy Sunday to everybody. And June 1, we
I
have
know, I can't
finished
believe
the first half of the year.
it's June already. We're into the 6th month of the year. I literally can't believe it. It feels like only a few weeks ago. Well, quite literally, it was a few weeks ago since we were talking about May. But we're moving on very, very swiftly through, obviously, these months in this year. It's been quite an exciting year so far, very volatile, as we've mentioned in previous weeks. Before we jump into the stream, of course, this is just a couple of guys looking at the charts, looking at kind of how we see things, the perspectives that we give. So it's not financial advice, it's just something we love to do week in, week out. Obviously, massive thank you to Wolf as well for letting us use the platform. We really, really appreciate it. And then finally, we have your ticker requests. Obviously, stick them in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on X, stick them in the chat. We'll be happy to get through them. Probably got about 15, 20 minutes until we get through our normal stuff with the SPY, QQQ, earnings, etc., and our picks of the week as well, which we've got a couple of good picks this week. So stick around for that one. And if you are in a generous position, make sure you repost the stream. We really appreciate it, whether it be on YouTube or X. Obviously, X will probably be the easiest way to do that. So just click the retweet button, of course. Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll leave that up on the screen there for just a second so you can put your ticker requests in there. We've got a few already. But yeah, how's your week been, okay?
It's been pretty well. I think we called out the Okta and the NVIDIA trade pretty solid, right?
Yeah.
Funny thing about NVIDIA trade, I know that we are covering NVIDIA today, so maybe we'll touch a little bit more about the previous last week trade around that time frame as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's jump into the slideshow, shall we?
Yeah, let's do this.
Right, so June, like as you mentioned, fantastic news. Where are we? Here we go. So the market overview actually didn't feel as green as it appears here.
Yeah.
At least not in my opinion. Let me just get rid of that thing on the screen there so you can see a full representation there. So we've got Microsoft and Google, Meta kind of hovering around the 1 to 3% area. We've got NVIDIA and Apple are kind of more towards 4%, which is interesting. And Amazon over here, of course, 3%, and Tesla actually 2.3%. So everything was kind of modestly up. But I don't know about you, but it just didn't feel like everything was up. I think it was one of those weeks where perhaps it started well and it just kind of dribbled out for the rest of the week. What are your thoughts?
I think that's the right feeling. I feel it was more flat than anything else.
Yeah.
The whole week felt pretty flat.
It did. Yeah, but you can see the green is definitely there. Obviously, we'll jump into the SPY QQQ chart very shortly. But before we do that, we're going to head over to the Fear and Greed Index. Currently sitting at 62%, 62 level. Still in greed. It hasn't really moved for a few weeks now. So even a week ago, it was 63. A month ago, it was 42. But I think even 3 weeks ago, it was around that kind of 60, maybe even 70 mark. So things kind of still sitting around there. Do you want to talk through the left side of the screen there?
Yeah, absolutely. So put to call pretty much in the same area, 0.69, 0.72, 0.71. So, we have been hovering in the same area. I think there isn't any major catalyst, like your earnings season is pretty much wrapped up. Few companies remain, but all the big players are done, right? Most of the tariff situation is on pause. Deals are currently being, negotiated. So there's really no major catalyst that is happening, and I think that's the reason why we have been in this limbo, 2% up, 1% down kind of a scenario. Plus, we were almost hitting all-time highs near the SPY. Wix has dropped down below 20. Generally, we have been above 20 for I guess couple months now. You can see the SPY and QQQ. So a couple interesting numbers that will come out this week. Is mostly we're going to focus on the job numbers. So you'll have the JOLTS job numbers coming out on 6/3. You'll have the jobless claims coming out on 6/5. And on Friday, you'll have the payroll data. So non-farm payroll, manufacturing payroll. So a lot of job number data that are going to come out. So most likely things are going to get impacted from midweek towards the end of the week. And then we'll get some kind of a direction maybe for the next week, what's going on.
Yeah, definitely more volatility to be had. The jolts and the jobs data at the moment does kind of move the market a little bit more than it used to, I think, from what I can see in the short term. We do have a comment here from Justin. Thank you once again for joining the stream, Justin. We really appreciate it every week. One other question: do you possibly see a head and shoulders on the 15-minute on the SPY and QQQ? We can take a look at that. Maybe we'll do that on the first chart when we get to the audience requests. Should we do that, okay?
Yep.
I would do it with the SPY and QQQ, but then I had to get up the charts and do that instead. So we'll just add it to the first one. So stick around for that, Justin, which I'm sure you will. We'll appreciate that, obviously, greatly. earnings this week. Now, there's one name on there that I'll be looking at very intensely, just because I've been following for years, and that is NEO here, obviously before open on Tuesday. At the moment, it's not looking good. I mean, it did guide the fact that this quarter would be terrible. And of course, we had delivery numbers come out today, which were less than, they weren't very good, basically. They weren't very expected, should we say. But there's a couple more names in here. Obviously, you're probably looking at MongoDB and CrowdStrike. Anything else you want to talk to about that?
Yeah, actually, I was surprised. I actually have a lot more companies this week than I was expecting last week. So as you covered, MongoDB, CrowdStrike, those are your typical in the SaaS space and the cybersecurity space. I'm looking at Asana on Tuesday as well. So this is another competitor for Monday.com in the SaaS space. Then on Thursday, we have Broadcom, we have DocuSign, and we have Lululemon.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So apparently this week is going to be a little busy week in terms of all these companies. I was a little bit confused which chart I should bring it up this week. So I had a lot more options this week. So,
and your pick of the week actually is Lululemon, isn't it? So,
it is, yes.
You know what happened last week when you picked Okta for the earnings report. So we'll see what happens there.
Now, it doesn't mean that I will not take trades in the other areas, but I was actually debating between Asana and Lululemon. But of course, Broadcom and CrowdStrike were also on the. Like, it was difficult to choose which one because we are just selecting one ticker. So I'll go with Lululemon.
I just want to mention ChargePoint as well before we go. I didn't realize they were posting earnings after the close on Wednesday. They've been through a really rough patch and will probably continue to go through rough patches with the Tesla charging network kind of flowing through the US. So it'd be interesting to see if they're really burning cash more because they are kind of on the up, but they're also not because their fundamentals are looking really, really poor. Yeah, the chart looks quite nice, and I have been posting that for the last few weeks.
And I'm surprised that are they planning to do a reverse split because the stock is it's 69 cents. This is not a tenable situation for long.
No, it's not really, really not. And you can see in the fundamentals if you look into it. If you get time, the viewers and yourself, Kay, of course, look into the fundamentals. It's really not pretty. But it's not about ChargePoint this stream. We'll move on to this one here. We're going to talk a little bit about our picks from last week. So you had Okta. What was the result on that one?
So Okta was down 18%.
So I think I might have won this week as well.
You did win. You did win. And here's the funny part, right? I actually had called Okta to actually drop. But again, this is not about that. Which is the winner pick. So you win again. Congratulations.
Yeah, and my pick, what was that? Amazon, wasn't it?
Amazon, you were up 1.17. So
yeah, somehow I managed to win the week.
You win it.
1.17. Exactly. But you did win the week before. So what I'm going to do is maybe add to this slide somewhere in the middle the kind of previous picks that we've had, so people can really see.
Yeah, you can put those numbers here, right? Who wins who's winning the running tally?
I think it's currently 8-1 or 9-1 or something like that.
No, this will be 9-1. This will be
9-1. That's incredible. Yeah. So where you can get us as well. We'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later on, but you can find me on X as well, obviously YouTube, and TTR was a trading platform. KAYE as well, we can find you on X, YouTube, and you've started releasing some really good content on Substack as well.
Yeah.
But we will jump into that a little bit later on. But first of all, we're going to jump into SPY and QQQ. The first one here is SPY. It's tricky because this week was only a 4-day week last week. So you can see the last 4 candles. We had a really nice day, really nice hammer actually on Monday. Just kind of gapped up overnight and dribbled down on Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday was a little bit scary, maybe a bit of profit taking coming into the weekend. But we did get that little bit of a hammer going into the weekend as well. Obviously, a big volume profile here on the right side, around this kind of 590 area. Obviously, the bulls have been looking to kind of break out of this kind of trend line. I didn't draw it, but you can kind of imagine a line there. Obviously, imagine that kind of going back up to all-time highs around 613 for SPY. On the other hand, I did draw this trend line on the negative side. So if we do break that, I do potentially see, as we spoke about this last week, I do potentially see a revisit to the 50-moving average and the 200-moving average. Any thoughts on the SPY at the moment, Kay?
No, I think we probably, until we see some kind of a direction from the administration or some kind of a data point, I think we might be going back down. Because here's the funny part, you're right in the middle, right? You are from here, all-time high is about 3.5-4%, and to fill that gap is also 3% or so. So that's the reason you got that doji candle actually in the middle. It's indecision, what's going to happen? And I think it's very news driven, very event driven market. I've seen a lot of interviews. They're saying, okay, we'll visit 6,600 by the end of the year, but that's by end of the year. We're talking about the next week. So I think for now, I feel like the gap fill is more likely the on the cards as opposed to going back
All-time
to
highs.
highs. Yeah.
Yeah, has there been any news recently around the weekend?
Well,
I
I
haven't
think
actually seen. I've been a bit busy this weekend.
so. I think we went into, unless something changed, I think we increased the tariff on the steel and aluminum from 25 to 50%, and I think that goes into effect on Wednesday, June what, second, third, fourth, I think.
Okay.
So unless that news changes, I believe we will probably see. I'm not sure if it's European Union. If it is European Union, we'll probably see some kind of a response from them. If they do a retaliatory tariff, we'll probably see some pullback in the market, and that might lead to the gap fill.
Plenty to watch out for then, basically.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the QQQ, obviously make sure you put your tickers in the comments down below. We've got a few come in already, but we will require more. If not, we'll just roll through some of the interesting names that we think that are in the markets. But put that in the chat, put it in the YouTube chat and the X chat as well. I'll leave it up there for the QQQ chart, and I'll probably take it down afterwards. So yes, let's move on to the QQQ chart here. Did I do that? I didn't do that. Do you want to kick off the QQQ chart since we're on it?
I think it's going to be the pretty similar trend, right? Most of the companies have reported earnings. We did not see any major changes with NVIDIA. I think we'll probably follow the same pattern here. I feel like we might even fill that gap depending on the news for the tariff.
Yeah, and that gap fills around about 490, so
Yeah.
just sub 500, which is interesting. But we are, I've noted here, obviously only 4.17% off of all-time highs, which can be done in a few days. So if the market gets a little bit excited, especially with this nice hammer candle on Friday and the volume on the right, it could very easily go up as well. Not saying it will, but just my perspective of the chart.
Or it could just chop at the same level.
Exactly, yeah, which it has done basically for the last 2 or 3 weeks, apart from this little drop here. 2 or 3 weeks, it's been pretty flat, isn't it? Which is not a bad thing. It gives it time for the moving averages to come up. But yeah,
That is true.
right, let's move that away, and then let's go on to the next part. You can subscribe to us on the Trading Triangle on YouTube as well. We are streaming there now. So yeah, that's what I've got to really say. We don't really bring it up, and we haven't really brought it up for the last few months. So we thought we'd make a slide about it. So that's that.
So we don't forget asking folks to subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, so we thought this would force us to remember. So you can go ahead and subscribe to the Trading Triangle. We do have some ideas that we want to do for like kind of midweek sessions, but we haven't quite got the infrastructure there just yet. But we are still very much thinking about that, of course, for the future. So go ahead and subscribe to the Trading Triangle on YouTube. My pick of the week this week is NVIDIA. Now, very simply, there's a few lines in here, as you can see, and the two yellow ones is basically a range that I would like it to trade into. But what I would really like is perhaps a revisit down to kind of 130 to maybe start a position, perhaps. And then if it was to kind of break down below 130, then 122 is where I'd be looking at next. But if you start a position here, then add to it down here, then that's kind of a full position moving forward. And obviously, hopefully, that the overall goal was 150. You'll be able to talk more about the earnings. I didn't really see the results. I know they did very well because obviously you've got the kind of price movement kind of going up to kind of 144. Subsequently dropped after that. But lots of volume created at this level as a result of that. So it'd be interesting to see if you can kind of use that and make a move higher. But I want to see 130 first, just to get that kind of retest of this line for a further move higher. Obviously, we've got that trend line kind of flowing through the bottom there as well. So it'd be interesting to see if we can get that. What are your thoughts on NVIDIA?
So the last week's trade that I presented on Substack was a call credit spread. And I said that our call would be around 140 to 144, right? That was the call credit spread with the $5, 140 to 145. We actually were in that gap. The only problem was that because after reporting earnings on Wednesday, on Thursday, the stock actually ran up all the way to 143.64, which basically pulled our credits in. We were in a loss of about 40% or so. So if you were following my Substack comments, you will probably see I was giving you late updates. So at that point in time, you had to make a call whether you cut your losses or you keep up with the thesis that the stock will not hit above the previous high, which was the 143. And guess what happened? It actually hit 144.51 and the stock sold off. So if you would have held that trade, you would have expired with full profit, 100% profit, because the trade would have expired worthless. Your option, the call selling would have worked. So I did cut my losses at 40% to save my capital, because hey, you could see a trend, because you don't have much time left, because theta decay was creeping up. So that's the problem with the options selling, especially when you have very few days to maneuver. So the thesis played out. It's just you did not have the time on your side. But hey, listen, those are different trades that you take in account. So I think we will, if we see a breakdown of this downtrend line that I actually drew from the peak of January 6th. So the yellow bar that you have at the top, if you actually draw this trend line, downtrend line,
Yeah.
So
I can't draw it, but
yeah, but that's the trend line that I'm actually targeting for the stock to come down to.
So that would be about 116ish, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Roughly.
Yeah. And right now we are at the point of contact for NVIDIA. So point of control for NVIDIA 135. That's where majority of the trading is happening. Maybe another shelf down to 130. That is what your initial plan is. But if we don't see, if we lose those levels, there is actually nothing going on until you start seeing you coming to the trend line over there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few moving averages I've got on the screen here, as we've mentioned.
200 comes at 126. Yeah.
So there will be some support before we get down to your level. So it'll be interesting to see how it reacts there.
The other situation with NVIDIA is the constant saber rattling between US and China. So they just had the Shangri-La event where the US Defense Secretary, he went and he again raked the comment about Taiwan and China, and then China is going to attack Taiwan in 2027. So what ends up happening is those kind of comments, they keep the stock market and everybody on their toes about this whole situation between US and China.
And as we know, the markets are kind of forward-looking, about 6 to 12 months, so they will anticipate this and react as a consequence. And we're not really seeing that right now, which could be quite concerning if these things do kind of escalate. And perhaps the markets are looking a little bit kind of good right now, so there could be more pain to come. But of course, anything can happen. Donald Trump could come out and say something, and the market will be up 5%. That's where we are in the market this year. It's been the story of 2025. It's been quite fun, but it's been quite stressful at the same time, isn't it, Kay? Yeah. Okay, so that's NVIDIA. That's for me, and that's my pick of the week. So we'll see how that does for the week ahead. We're going to move on now to Kay's pick of the week. What have you got here, Kay?
Well, the one that I am picking up is Lululemon, because they are going to report earnings. There are a couple things that are happening with Lululemon. The first, let's talk about the earnings first. So they're reporting earnings on Thursday after hours. EPS 2.6, revenue 2.36 billion. That's estimated. We have 19 down revisions. So Street is expecting the stock to go down. And there are a couple reasons again. The biggest market right now for Lululemon, which is growing, is China. If we are seeing consumer sentiment weakening, right, that impacts the stock itself. The rising competition from brands like Wuori and I think there's another one, Arlo or something like that. So those are increasing brands. But apart from the fundamental aspect, we had this big drop all the way going back to the first yellow volume shelf that you see in the top. We saw that was an earning reaction. We saw the drop. The stock pretty much, went down, then it ran back up. Now, if we are right smack in the middle, the first 341 and 285 are the two areas where the stock could go to, depending upon how the earnings react. The chances of it filling the gap down with where 50 SMA would be is highly likely, considering everything that is happening with the market. So I actually am bearish on Lululemon trade, that it might sell off after the earnings, and I might be actually playing this trade as well. I just have to figure it out how to play, because there will be a massive theta decay right after earnings, and you only have Friday to close the trade. So I'll see how, if this is the right one to play or not. But I'm assuming, I'm expecting the directional bias is that it will go down right after earnings.
And from a long-term perspective, so maybe a few people are looking at this for a long-term perspective, do you like the gap fill to maybe buy for the future, or do you think it's a bit too risky?
No. I actually have been building my position in Lululemon for a while now. My cost basis is I think around 265 or so. But the idea for me is that Lululemon is still a very strong brand, and I expect that down the road we will see those highs of filling the top gap up, and that's what I'm aiming for my trade.
Awesome. I like that. The only thing I would bring to the table is potentially if you drew a trend line from this kind of bottom here all the way up to kind of where we are now-ish, if we did kind of fill that gap through earnings, it would probably come in line with that trend line. So it could be a bit of confluence there from my perspective, because I'm a bit more of a confluence-based trader and less kind of well, you are kind of confluence, but more of the option side of things. But I'm more of a shares trader, of course. So having that confluence there, you've probably got a bit of volume here, as you've probably got it here.
Yeah.
So the volume starts around that sort of level. So you've kind of got a bit of confidence there as well. So I like that kind of 285 level. I've just written it down there. So I do like it very much. Okay. But I obviously will be waiting until after earnings and seeing the commentary on that as well to see if it's kind of the guidance is okay for future months, or whether the brand might be losing steam perhaps. But yeah, no, I like it. Okay.
Yep.
Right, so our picks of the week. I picked NVIDIA and Kay has picked Lululemon. We'll see how it does next week. But before we do that, we will let's talk about what we're doing on our channel. Do you want to go first, Kay?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I've been very active on Substack. If you go ahead and subscribe today, you can go ahead and read a new option. It's not a new strategy, but I have written an article on synthetic long, which I had promised to actually make a video, but I thought writing it and explaining in written format makes a lot more sense. So I did that. So that's a free article. You can go check it out. And if you do options, that's a great strategy to actually hedge yourself with a directional bias if you like. However, I would say be careful. That's an advanced option strategy. So if you're new, that might not be the right strategy for you. YouTube, we have been continuously working on YouTube a lot. So a couple videos actually is in production right now, and I should be releasing them in the coming weeks. And next week is going to be a very interesting week. It's going to be a surprise, and it's going to come out. The information will come out next week, but the video will come out the week after. And then of course I'm on X all the time.
And I know all about that, so it is going to be very exciting to see what happens there. So I've been very much looking forward to seeing that on the channel. You can get that with @InvestK for X, YouTube, and Substack. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Same.
I did just post the links in the chat, and I don't know how, but it's come from 3 different accounts, so all those links are actually the same. But I picked I don't know why, but there's 6 links there, but they're actually the same links, and everyone's kind of posting there. For me personally, obviously, I've got X as well. I post kind of pretty much daily around trading, kind of thoughts around like that. YouTube as well, Sean Trades _. I'm doing a couple of videos around trading, evergreen kind of videos as well. I've got one coming out this Saturday, so do be tuned for that. I've been a bit quiet there recently. It's been a very busy month, May, very busy month. But June and onwards, looking a bit more quieter for me, at least personally. TTR as well, which is my trading community. I've slashed the price considering value in there is really, really high now. So do consider looking at that. And the link for that is obviously on my X channel right on top of the profile. Should we move on, Kay?
Yeah, let's go and kick it off with the 15-minute for SPY and QQQ first.
Awesome.
Right, that was the request of 15 minutes, right?
It was, yeah, 15-minute chart.
Okay.
We have changed the layout slightly with the slides. Let us know in the comments whether you think that's a good idea or not. Well, it's happened, but whether you think you enjoy it, whether we can improve on it. Always happy for any sort of feedback we can get to improve the streams and make it easier for you to kind of understand and interpret. We have here this SPY chart. Let's jump into the 15 minutes. It's tricky to have patterns going into a weekend because, for example, tomorrow SPY could open all the way down here or all the way up here. So it's going to be quite tricky to see the kind of pattern. But I think I can kind of see the patterns after. Maybe I can have a look at the 15.
15 minute. Do you possibly see a head and shoulder?
So do you reckon Justin is talking about?
See, for me personally, I have a hard time, deciphering the patterns. I'll tell you that.
Like that, perhaps. That's maybe, I'll make it a bit brighter.
However, the neckline for it's a little uneven neckline if you think about it.
It is, but it does work like that
Yeah.
even still, in my experience anyway. The only thing that I would not think it was a good thing was coming up from the bottom here. Normally with the inverse head and shoulders, it comes from the top.
Yeah.
We have had it slightly here. But yeah, I mean, I can kind of see what you mean, Justin. It's not the most secure head and shoulders you just mentioned there, Kay, but we would be looking at breaking essentially 594 if we were to kind of make that move higher. And like I said, over the weekend it can dramatically move. We could open up down here at 580. We can open up, 600 or so, especially the way Donald Trump is acting at the moment. It's very tricky. So that's kind of the analysis and the kind of perspective that we've given now on 15-minute there, Justin. So hopefully that helped help make you aware of kind of what's going on. Right, what's next?
So he also asked if QQQ you see the same pattern.
Yes. Let's try this. Then obviously they do kind of run slightly together. This one's a little bit more skewed.
Yeah.
This one basically has no shoulder on the right side here. Now,
I think for SPY it really was just uneven, but you could see it. This one is even hard to.
This one's a lot harder because you don't really have the shoulder down here. I mean, you could say that's a shoulder, but that's a gap down, so I wouldn't say that's a shoulder at all. You can also have this as a shoulder, but it's a very wide shoulder and it hasn't come from above. So I would say that's not a pattern recognition there at all. What I do like is the higher lows that have been presented here on the 15-minute chart. So perhaps that might help your judgment there. Justin, I would do that like this. And you can see the higher lows kind of going into the weekend price action. And of course, we only had 4 days last week. So
yeah,
this is 4 days, but this is the 30-minute chart as well. So it's a little more zoomed out perspective. Yeah, no, I hope that helped.
Okay. Justin. Let's move to Palantir now. That I think we're going back to the daily now.
Palantir daily, yeah. If you want us to look at specific time frames, obviously do stick them in the comments as well. Give us a perspective on the charts.
I mean, what really amazes me in Palantir is that how do you even trade this at this level?
Well, I mean,
you could do day trading. I would not want to swing this.
No, not now.
Right? I can day trade this one.
You could swing it with a tight stop loss, Kay, I would say. So if you had, if we got in maybe, okay, let's draw a line here. We've got a bit of time here, haven't we? So let's zoom in. We've very clearly got a bit of a bull flag here. The market was in a bit of a bull flag throughout the whole week as well. We've had a pop. We've had a pop right out. So perhaps you could have got in just on the break of that, maybe on the lower time frames, and kept a stop loss at 122.
Okay.
That way, your risk to reward essentially is obviously unlimited to the upside because you'd be holding for a swing trade and probably just following the stop loss up. But your loss is actually only 1% if you keep a really tight stop loss. So you could trade like that. It's not in my playbook. It's not really my strategy to do that because I'd like a bigger stop loss. So my stop loss, if I was to take that, would be down here below all these lows.
I see.
But I would lose obviously 6% if it was to come back on me. So I love the break there actually from Palantir.
For me, if I have to do this, I would. Let me see. I would. Let me see.
See, I would look for it to pull back to the 125 mark and then make a move higher. So just before you spoke there. Let's finish what I said.
I would do a call credit spread on this one, right? I would for the pullback, but because I don't follow the stock enough, I don't know if there's any catalyst that may push the stock higher. But the only catalyst I'm seeing is articles to sell the stock.
Yeah, but they've been having that for years now.
Yeah.
Keeps pushing higher highs, higher lows.
Yeah. That is true. Yeah.
I mean, you've got, let me get the highlighter out, it's a bit easier to draw. Obviously, a low set there in August and April, beginning of the year, and then these lows here. We've just had another one. We need to have successive higher highs as well to keep going. Yeah, I think the only trade I would have is to go short if it was to break this kind of trend line here. But now I'm getting to the realm of drawing too many things on the chart. I don't like that.
Yeah.
For now, given the direction of the market generally and the direction of Palantir generally, I would wait for it to come back down to 125, retest it, and make a move higher.
I feel like there are other opportunities that will give you a better RR as opposed to Palantir at this point in time.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because even if you buy a leap call at this point in time, you are paying a hefty premium to buy that leap call, so it doesn't make sense. Um, you could probably sell puts, long dated puts.
I think with Palantir, I think a lot of people are holding it and they're wondering, is it going to go higher?
Yeah, but
Should I sell some?
those guys are from like long time back, like people in the 10s and 20s and 30s.
Yeah,
Those are the people.
yeah. I mean, the questions are: should I sell some? Should I buy some more? When should I buy more? There are questions you've got to ask yourself for a lot of stocks, not just Palantir. That's the kind of psychological impacts for investing and trading. It's when to buy and sell, of course. But if I was holding this for a long time, I probably would have taken money already by now because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
But all the time this is happening, then
Because before we jump onto this, yeah, so Justin was saying he was looking to short Palantir. So I think, Justin, the idea would be to do call credit spread on this one, right? That's the best way to short, because then you are only, if you go a $5 width, you're only risking $500 and you're getting credit on it. I wouldn't outright buy puts, because that again is like you lose money, because
gambling, isn't it, that one?
right, because let's say you buy next week's 131 put, you will pay $400 for it, which means that the stock has to drop to what, 1 2 3, almost 127 before you actually start making money for the break even to happen. So call credit spread might be a better opportunity here for shorting.
And if you're placing puts, a day like Friday, 7.7% up would absolutely destroy you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? So yeah, best stay away from the gambling type options. But yeah, no, interesting chart. People have been calling shorting this one for months. But yeah,
No,
still no right or wrong answer.
I think you could still make money shorting as long as
Yeah,
you do the credits as you do. If you play spreads, you will make money on this one. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Next is Meta.
Meta. I haven't had this one for a while, have we? Okay, that's interesting. We have had a break of that 630 line, obviously with earnings recently. It's just moved up basically since then. Nice gap up here. We've got the similar sort of thing with the spine QQQ. There's a gap created a couple of weeks ago, and we're kind of anticipating it obviously filling. But it has reacted well off the 630 line. We wanted it to come back down and retest it clearly because obviously I've drawn the line here for some reason. It's kind of done that, make a move higher, set a lower high, which is not exactly what we wanted. Perhaps if we can draw yet another line, why not? Part of the line game. If we can break through up here, then obviously go towards all-time highs around 740, which sounds ridiculous for Meta, but yeah, that's definitely happening. And obviously keeping the stop loss in that trade just below the 20-moving average, or these lows here around 620, so that your losses are not too bad. Let's draw that out potentially. So if you break the trend line there, so I'm waffling a little bit. So you lose 5%, but with an opportunity of getting 12%. So it's basically a 2-to-1 ratio trade. Yeah, I like it. I do like it if it can break that kind of trend line there. Are your thoughts on Meta? Do you like trade it much? Probably not so
I
much.
mean, lately I haven't traded Meta because my capital is tied up with other ones. But I like trading Meta. But I mostly sell options on Meta, right? I sell, I get access, I get assigned, and I sell the covered calls. So I do a wheel strategy on Meta mostly, so I don't really mind.
Yeah.
But the latest drawdown that happened with Meta, like I got stuck into it. Then once I recovered, I sold my covered calls. But I have a long term position. I don't touch Meta on that one.
That's fair enough. So you're just happy sitting in the long position for now.
Yeah. I mean, you are coming up to the 20-day SMA, which is 628, and then you have that the gap down, right? So that could be an opportunity, but then you have the 200 SMA at 593. So that would be a strong, support level.
For sure. Let's
So
zoom out. Let's have a little zoom out on Meta, see what's going on there. So it's above the 20 and 50.
I might. This is again an idea for a monthly, right? A monthly option trade that I can think of playing on this one could be the um the put credit spread on this one. We can probably um or you can do an iron condor on this one. So if you take 662, or maybe actually go higher a little bit, 683, and the 200-day 593. I'll have to see how much you actually can make on it from a premium standpoint. But an iron condor, because it might just chop in this level between the 623 and 558. That's the range I'm looking at. So if it chops in that range, after that decline, you can probably just make money on the iron condor.
Yeah, okay. Is there any point in making leap calls, or are they just way too expensive?
A leap call with Meta. So let's say a leap call, you're looking at 365 days, right? So 18 June, 382. So leap call, generally people recommend that you should buy deep in the money, which would be around the 80 delta or 90 delta. I mean, you're gonna pay almost close to $17,000 for on it. It's
There you go.
it's not the right time. When you should have bought leap, when market was selling off. So if you like
Yeah.
leap calls, right, buy leap calls when the stock is hammered, and on a fear to greed index, the stock is like, people are in extreme fear or fear. That's when the leap calls are the cheapest to buy.
Here's another question for you then. When you say, obviously, leap calls, if the RSI is down in like the 20s and the 30s, is that also a good time to buy leap
Yeah. I mean, you don't buy leap, because what will happen is when the RSI is at 70, which means it's closer to the overbought territory, which means there's a lot of enthusiasm and exuberance on the stock. So premiums are high. So people who are selling those calls, because see, they're only buyers and sellers, right? Somebody has those stocks and they want to sell a covered call, and you're buying the contract from somebody, which in this case will be market maker. So you're buying that call that, hey, I'll pay you $16,000 for a price of, I don't know, 550. That I will buy a stock from you at this point in time. So 550 plus you add another $16,000. I mean, your break even is so high at these levels that you might not even make money at some point in time if the stock pulls back.
Yeah. Interesting one. Okay, what's next?
Next is HIMS, and the question was, is a cup and handle setting up for HIMS?
Oh, I can see what you're thinking of there, Raymond. So I've got a comment here. Is cup and handle setting up for HIMS, as Kay just mentioned. Let's have a look at that, shall we? So we've obviously got the left side of the cup here very clearly, and the right side of the cup here. I'll draw it out in a second after I get rid of, maybe I'll just get rid of all the lines for now. There you go. It makes it a bit simpler to have a look at. And what I'll do, I always forget where this particular line is. Is it this one? I always do this. It is this one. Fantastic.
Oh, look at that.
So that's the cup part, and then obviously the handle part is being created now. It's a bit skew-if, I must admit, so maybe we can have the line somewhere in here. So that's the kind of neckline, shall we say, for the cup and handle. Then we've got another one here, so we'll go ahead and draw that out. I'm not too sure why it's pink, but we've got that possibly forming. So we've probably got another month or so for this to kind of, a couple of weeks for this to kind of play out. Definitely a breakout of that 65 level would be key for HIMS. I'm really annoyed at this because a few weeks ago, I think actually I brought it up on here, and this actually won that week, and I was really happy about it. And it was basically coming through this trend line there. So if I draw that out for people, this is another classic SHAUN move where I completely missed the trade. But I drew out the trend line here, and it broke out, and it came back down and retested the 50-moving average and blah blah blah, and it wasn't quite coming down to my level. So I followed my rules, but I just kind of wish I didn't slightly. And then obviously it rocketed all up to kind of 65%, which is about 100% for where it is now. Coming back down to retest the 20-moving average, but yeah, another one I missed. Did you miss it as well, Kay?
No, it wasn't. I don't trade HIMS.
Not on your radar. No.
Yeah, not on my radar. There's only so many you can trade, right? You can't just every week change tickers. I think I am one of the things in trading that at least has worked for me is to um, work on the same tickers, right? Because what ends up happening with tickers is you start to understand the pattern in how they trade. So, like, let's say if you just focus on one or two or three, you will start to understand how it works. Because then what will happen, you will start to jump into the charts, you will look at the news cycle and how the news impacts what kind of a news it is, how much the move is going to happen. Then you kind of start getting the earnings right. But the problem is if I increase it 20 tickers, I won't be able to understand the pattern. So
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I personally, for me, I'm not great at identifying those cup and handles, but for some reason the way it works for me, because I can understand the movement of the chart. I don't know how best to put it. It's just, for me, that just works.
So what would you say your favorite tickers are to trade? Just off the top of your head,
So
maybe two or three.
yeah, so I love trading Apple, Tesla, NVIDIA, and I would say the fourth one, if I had to put, I like trading SoFi from a cheap stock standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you tend to understand the ranges they operate in.
Yeah, no, I've sympathised there definitely. Obviously, the stocks I kind of trade mostly kind of Google, Tesla every now and then, maybe less so now because it's so volatile. But Rivian and Neo as well, because like my kind of EVs, I kind of look at them daily, so it's interesting to see how they move. A bit more risky, but I think the kind of bigger stock, and Amazon actually, to be fair, Amazon and Google are probably the bigger stocks that I trade quite often for sure. But yeah, no, I think that's an interesting discussion that people might take a little bit of value from around kind of consistency and which tickers you trade on a regular basis, because you will get better trading those particular tickers, and you'll become a better trader because of that. So yeah, we'll jump back into the charts now. What's next?
Next is Apple from Tesla Nair.
Here we go. So this one is
I
consistently bearish. I mean, on the year to date, it's down like 20%, and every other Mag 7 is basically flat or up. So take it away, Kay, because I know you're very passionate about Apple at the moment.
I mean, I already have a negative trade which I'm running on
yeah,
Apple.
I saw that earlier.
Yeah, and I did post it about it. I think within 24 hours we were up to 25%, and of course we gave up a little bit of the gains. But hey, it's a monthly one, so as soon as I hit my 50-60% profit limit, profit target, I will exit out of the position. But again, downward trend. It's not looking good for Apple, at least for this quarter and the next quarter.
And maybe the quarter afterwards. I think what it needs to do for you, particularly from a short perspective, is break this low here. You're talking about being in it now, but if you break 193, we could very easily see 175 in the near term.
Yeah.
And of course, that will react with SPY and QQQ, because obviously it's a big percentage of both indices, as it is in most ETFs as well around the industry. So seeing that fall would be quite catastrophic, I think, maybe not catastrophic, quite a strong word, but it'd be quite disappointing, I think, for SPY and QQQ. But of course, you do have the likes of NVIDIA and Google, Amazon doing quite well, so it does prop it up and kind of balance it out. But once one kind of tips over, the other one kind of follows as well. But on the other side, if we do break to the upside and break all these to the upside for some reason, if Apple come out with, I don't know, robotic legs or something stupid like that, perhaps you might see a bit of a jump. That would be cool, though, by the way.
I think the problem that Apple is facing right now is, where do they manufacture their phones? Right?
Yeah,
Because
thing,
Donald Trump doesn't want them to manufacture in China. They said, okay, we'll move to India. He said he don't want to manufacture in India. Bring it back to US. US will cost you $3,500 as per the assessment from all the analysts. So what does Apple do? So until Apple comes up with a response to that, and the heat is a little bit off from Apple, but that's just a temporary situation, right? I think that the bigger situation is that iPhone and is the cash cow for the company, just like for Tesla. selling Model Y and Model 3 is the cash cow. No new products, nothing is sticking. And they're saying, hey, we'll come up with all these random things by 2027. Well, that's 6 quarters away, or at least 4 to 6 quarters away.
I don't even see many rumors around what could come out to potentially turn this stock
Because
around.
if you think about it, right?
Apple Intelligence. Well, hey, well,
So the biggest rumor that Apple had was the Apple Car. That was the biggest
yeah.
rumor that was happening. So they spent $10 billion and they decided to pull out. And I was very surprised as why wouldn't they actually go with buying another company or something like that, like a Fisker or something, some EV company that they could just buy.
It's a shame. I've always thought that it would be good to buy NIO. Obviously, they're never going to do that because it's a Chinese company.
Why not Lucid?
The kind of NIO family kind of feel to it, and obviously the infrastructure around it, and the fact that they're kind of trying to own the EV workspace in China.
They could have bought Lucid.
Yeah, now the Saudis have got involved.
Yeah, like Lucid is an expensive vehicle and kind of suits Apple's high end.
Yeah.
So Raymond says, why not Apple Puerto Rico?
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to buy Lucid, are they? Because obviously that's owned by Saudis now. So that's a foreign investment. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm not too sure who else they could buy. Maybe Rivian, but I'm not too sure. RJ.
I feel like Rivian. I think Amazon has a bigger stake with Rivian than Apple, right?
Well, yeah, definitely. But Amazon aren't making the cars; they just want them to produce their delivery vans for them.
They don't need to. They can keep it as is, and buy the company, and be a bigger stakeholder and still profit from the company.
Yeah. Well, I think that we've covered Apple quite a lot there. A few personal thoughts. Hood, that's the last tick of the day, I think.
That's the last request. Yeah, we don't have any more requests.
Bit of a quiet Sunday this Sunday. Perhaps people are out busy enjoying the weather. What's the weather like over in the US?
It's beautiful. It's I think today.
There you go. People are outside enjoying their lives. They'll come back and watch this a little bit later on anyway. So yeah, we believe in them. No problem at all. Okay, so Hood doing really well actually. Didn't quite make it back down to the green line, which I mentioned probably a few weeks ago now. It's just powered higher and perhaps going to be breaking this. What's that? About 67? That $67 level line there, but maybe you can have a bit of a breakout from there. I know you don't trade this one much, but what are your thoughts on the chart that you see in front of you?
I don't trade, but I think there are rumors that this week will be an announcement whether they get inducted in S&P 500.
Okay, well, that'd be good for them.
If that happens, then you'll probably see a rally. And we got 2 more requests, so we can continue this.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what I will say. And otherwise, if nothing happens, then we probably see a pullback to your.
I've just drawn this line here, the trend line. I like it because obviously we've got 2 strong bounces off of that, especially with the confluence at this level back in May, the beginning of May. And of course, it's kind of up here at the moment. But if we come back down to the bottom of this trend line, about $60. It's 10% fall, but of course, stocks like this, they move quite viciously. And then with that potential catalyst coming around the corner, obviously, if we can get that break, then perhaps that kind of move to all-time high at $85, which would be a trade and a half. I'll definitely keep my eye on that one. I've got to watch Hood this week, I think. I'll put that on my notes.
The next is LLY, Eli Lilly.
Eli Lilly. I don't know much about this company. I know they're kind of in competition with him a little bit. Is that right?
It's I think it's a. Let me see. I don't. It's healthcare, but I don't know what they do exactly. Let me see.
The stock is not.
They develop and market human. So it's a pharmaceutical company.
I did a bit of research a little while ago and said what the best value. I basically asked ChatGPT what's the best value in the markets at the moment, and this is one of them.
Really?
I've yet to do my own research into that, so obviously I haven't jumped into it or anything like that.
I think in XLV, which is the healthcare sector ETF, I think this is one of the big ones. They are 11% of that ETF, almost 12%, 11.84.
So who else is in that ETF? XLV. Who else is in that ETF?
It's Johnson & Johnson, AbbVie, UNH, Abbott Lab, Intuitive Surgical, Merck, Thermo Fisher, Boston Scientific Group, Amgen. Those are the top 10.
The usual suspects then.
Yeah, the usual suspects, yes.
As from a chart perspective, it looks quite nice actually. I know it's been a bit dramatic in the last few months, but you kind of get that really, obviously, with everything that's kind of happened around healthcare as well. But you could potentially place a trade. It would be a bit of a high risk one. Place a trade at the bottom of this trend line, so kind of here, thereabouts, and then you could have a stop loss just under this recent low, beginning of April, which is about 666, which is a good number. And you can just play it to the upside, of course, having your risk management, however you manage your risk for a trade. But it is a bit of an 8% loss. That's high risk, really. But I like that, to be honest. I don't mind that. I'd have to do a bit more digging into LLY, and I've still got the list from the other day. But I'll look it up.
Yeah, and for option selling, it's a pretty expensive stock for option selling.
Of course, yeah, being as high as it is.
Next is Microsoft, and then we have Okta.
Microsoft, and there's a question on Okta, so I think that might be turned a bit more towards yourself, given that you picked it up last week and the earnings came up midweek. But we're on Microsoft now. Wow, what a chart!
Dude,
look at the last 5 weeks.
But there's a big gap now. I'm looking forward for that gap fill to happen.
And that gap is all the way down here at 397, which from this point onwards, if we were to fall from now, that would be a 14% drop. It's actually not that much, is it really?
No, not that much. But so if we see a pullback in the market, I think that is where you should target to add. Because see, you have your 200 SMA coming there. You have your 300.
They're a bit higher. The 300
is 386. 200 is 412, and you have your 50-day coming up at 417. Oh, sorry, I got it wrong. Hold on 1 second. 50 is 408. 50 is 408. 200 is 415, and 300 is 417.
There you go. I mean, they're on the screen there, ready for people to see. Also, the gap fills all the way down there, but we've got lots of support in the way of lines, which I've drawn. I don't know. I think it's looking a bit better than the gap fill. Perhaps if we get a bigger market drawdown, that would be something I look forward to. But at the moment, we're not looking too bad. I don't think I'd be buying it here, though. That's the thing. I might live to regret that. Okay, let's answer a question here from
Anand.
Who is it? Anand. Fantastic. We'll just make that there and pop it up on the screen here. What do you think about Okta? Had good earnings, but not great guidance, but it is a leader in identity.
I think, let me look at the Okta chart. I mean, the question is from an investing standpoint or a chart standpoint.
Let's bring it up here.
So let's, if you're looking from an analysis standpoint on, hey, how we are doing on the so the gross profit is increasing. It's kind of, I'll give you a quick fundamental view on that. So gross profit is increasing. That's great. Operating income has gone up as well. The net income has increased drastically. So those are good signs. I have not seen the what is the net retention rate as a SaaS company, so that I cannot.
Investing, he wants you.
Investing. Yeah, I mean, from an investing standpoint, long term, this I might want to add more. Under 100, around, I would say my personal price is around 80, 85. Let's look at the. Let me tell you what's the DCF value for this one. Give me 1 second.
See, I'm already thinking something different, but I'll get to that in a minute.
So as per the man, so slow. So the fair value right now, they're saying it's 141. The current price is 103. But I think we can probably see a more pullback, because if the guidance is poor, I would hope that the stock pulls back below the 100 mark, and my target is around 80, 81. That's where I will start to add to my position or build a position from there onwards.
Do you think that's more likely because of the results they've just had, or
I did not actually results on what happened? I think the person Anant mentioned that it's a poor guidance, but Okta has been like this for a while now. Poor guidance on what was the reason for their poor guidance? I don't know. Is it like the long sales cycle or new competition popping up? I'll have to do more research on from an investing standpoint. What's happening?
So I really like this myself, just because of my word confluence. And you know I love a bit of confluence. This is actually the weekly chart that I've got in front of everyone right now. And you've got the 300 moving average, which I've now added to my chart. Thank you, Kay, which is the green line flowing through there. They've got the red line, which is 200 moving average. You've also got the 20 moving average, which isn't so cemented on the weekly chart. And the 50 is obviously down here, so it's kind of a bit out of the picture at the moment. And you've got this trend line flowing through the screen as well. So there's lots of confidence here. There's 3 or 4 pieces there, which is always good. Anything above 2 is something that I always keep on my radar. The only thing that's not quite there is the volume. So you could potentially have a really tight position here. So you could get in around this kind of $100 level, and then maybe keep a tight stop loss around 96, 97. And if it triggers, it's only 3% on a swing trading basis anyway. But then the potential for upside is quite magnificent. So you can, if we just go to recent highs, you could have 26%, I guess, overall from the $100 level if you bring it down a touch. So there's definitely potential for upside there for Opta. So I do like it, but of course I'd have to do a little bit more research into why it's dropped so much after the earnings, given it looks like it was a beat down here.
It's exactly, and I think personally for me, I like the stock, I like the company. I've been a user of the product as well, so it's not like I don't know what they do. I had a position back in the 70s, and when it ran up, I had my profit and I basically sold out from that. But I never got back in. But even if you look at the fair value from an investing standpoint, and even if you build a position from here, so fair value is 141. So if you trade that way, that is still a upside of 35, 36%. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to happen this year? We don't know. If the guidance is poor, we might. So if the guidance is poor, we might still see some slow down, pullback. Some kind of a sideways trading in this 80 to 100, 105 range for a couple weeks, and then some news comes out, the stock pulls back again because we had a gap down. So at some point in time, that gap will get filled.
There you go. That's the thoughts on Opta. Hope that's okay, Ananth. We're just going to slip into the ending part here. We do have a nice comment here, which is, who's ready for a good week ahead? Are you ready for a good week ahead, Kay?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody is ready for a good weekend. But will we get one? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on...
We'll see if that delivers. So that concludes basically the live stream for this week on June the 1st, kicking off June in style. What were you going to say there, Kay?
We had a comment from Raymond.
Yes. Okay, so we've got another one here. We'll end on this comment. United Healthcare is one that's been extremely oversold, the biggest health insurance company in the US. Could be a great buy for long term. Yes, people have been saying that for a few weeks now. Obviously, massively oversold, especially on RSI as well. It's quite dramatic. Maybe looking for an RSI divergence there, in my thoughts, a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it on this very live stream. But yeah, thank you very much there for Raymond Sackler, and thank you, Kay, for bringing that one up, because I did miss that. So sorry, Raymond. But hopefully see you next week as well. We'll be back this time next week, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We do it every week. We love it. Obviously looking at charts, giving our perspectives, etc. Massive thank you to Wolf as well for letting us use the platform. We really, really appreciate it. And I think that's about it. Obviously, trade safe, etc. And I'm going to hand the rest over to Kay. Maybe he can finish it a bit better.
Listen, I would just end it with saying, the question, who's ready for a good week? I guess we are all ready for a good week. Let's hope it's a good week, and wish you guys, a lot of profit for next week. Have fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Take care, everyone. See you later, Justin. Take care and enjoy your trading and trade safe. Make sure you trade safe. It's very volatile out there.